Today we're going to make bread. For this we're going to use special flour. It's called strong plain flour. Strong plain flour means that it's got lots of gluten in and gliadin. These are two proteins found in wheat. When they're hydrated, that means when water is added, they create a protein called gluten. You might have heard of gluten. Some people can't actually tolerate eating gluten. The gluten is what's going to make the dough nice and stretchy. More about that later. Now, to the flour, we're going to have to add some salt and some sugar. So I've got about half a teaspoonful of salt and half a teaspoonful of sugar there. Sugar will feed the yeast a little bit later, and salt brings out the flavour. To this, we're going to add the yeast. It's a sachet of dried yeast. So just to recap, in this bowl I've got 300 grams of strong plain flour, 1 sachet of yeast and half a teaspoon of sugar and half a teaspoon of salt. You can of course reduce the salt content to make the bread that little bit healthier. There. Now just mix that together. And then we're going to bind it in a moment with some hand-hot water. Hand-hot water is important. It's got to be measured really carefully. There's 200 millilitres there. Just get down and check that it's just the 200 millilitres there and that it's the right temperature. To check that it's the right temperature, just going to put a hand in, and if your hand jumps out in agony, it's too hot, it's going to kill the yeast. But if it feels just a little bit warm to the touch, then that's just about right. So now we go on and we mix it using half. That's right, the same process. Half of what is the measured liquid, mix it. I think we did this for scones as well. Half. Again, don't add more than half at a time. Mix it. I'm using a palette knife to mix it. Palette knife's particularly good because it's not sharp. Now, half of what is there. Look, there's still a little bit left in there. Mix it together, and I think looking at that dough, it's going to probably require the whole amount of water. Now, if I hadn't measured that accurately, I would have a very sticky dough at this point. So mix it together until you think that you can actually put one hand in. So pop that down, move it to the side, make sure it's out of the way. One hand, only one hand, or you'll get very, very sticky. So bring it together into a dough. Better if that dough is slightly sticky than too dry, because the yeast needs the liquid in order for it to function properly. Now, we're just going to think yeast, of course, is going to function as a raising agent. This means that it's going to produce carbon dioxide gas, and that's going to make the bread rise. So, the kneading process. Here we go. Make sure that your hands are clean. Just rub them together. You can do this over a dustbin if you've got one close by. Just move those to one side. Now, you take a little bit of flour on your hand. No need to flood the tabletop with flour. If you do, you're going to dry out your dough. So using the heel of your hand, a little bit of flour on again, heel of your hand, just stretch it, stretch, and you have to keep going at this point, preferably for about 10 minutes. Whilst this is happening, the gluten that we talked about earlier on is being stretched and developed. And as it's developing, it's becoming more elastic. And that's going to enable the bread to rise once it's in the oven. There we go. Stretch it out. Heel of the hand. Pull it back. Twist. That's a little bit more flour if it's sticking. And again, two hands here. A little bit faster. You have to keep this going. It's quite a hard workout actually. So keep going. And as you're going, the dough will become slightly smoother. There. Now, keep that going, and eventually you should be able to see the network of gluten forming. Have a look in a moment and see whether we can see that. Here we go, look. There, just stretch it back. You might be able to see a sort of mesh, a network. You see that of gluten forming. Because the gluten is going to form the actual structure of the bread. A little bit more. Having kneaded the dough, now just going to move the sides to the centre and make a nice smooth ball. Can you see? That's it. Rock it a little bit, turn it over, and it should have a nice smooth top. Now at this point I'm going to put it back into the bowl and then I'm going to cover it in a cloth and put it in a warm place for it to rise. It will double in size. However, if you're really short of time, so if you, for example, are in an exam or you're restricted by time in a lesson, you can miss out that first rising. The bread isn't quite as good, but it will make certainly a decent bread roll. So that's right. Now we're going to shape this. It's not risen. This is a one rise dough. So we're going to cut it in half. That make 2, and then each of these into 3 pieces, so that we're making 6 bread rolls in total. There. Now we're going to shape these, and we're going to do that with a little bit of flour down, not an excessive amount of flour, and then we're going to shape. Here we go. Roll it out. Now if it slips all over the surface, make sure that you clean some of the flour to one side. That's it, and then I've just literally knotted that piece of dough, pushed it in, and I'm going to put that then onto the baking tray. It's a greased baking tray or a floured baking tray that you can use. There are sides to middle, centre, and give it a little shake to get a smooth bottom. There we go, and pop that one onto the baking tray. I'm going to put that one fairly close, about 2 centimetres away from the other, so that when they bake, they all join up together. There we are. Now this is another one where we're just going to roll it into one long sausage shape and then create an interesting Catherine wheel. So take that as long as you can get it, wrap it round and round and round, and that again. Put it onto the baking tray. Now the next shape, let's think, what am I going to do with this one? Oh, I know. Let's roll it out again and we'll try another knot, I think. So one long piece, there we go, look. Just move, there are literally knotted. And then that one goes under, that one comes over, tuck it down and put that one about a couple of centimetres or so distance between them. When they rise, they should join together. Now this one, oh, that's a bit clever, two-handed here. Make 3 little sausage shapes, and we're going to plait this. So sides to middle, sides to middle, side to middle, side to middle, side to middle. There we go, seal it at the bottom, and we've got a little plait. Pop that one on the baking tray. And then last but not least, the last shape, I think we'll try an S shape this time. So one long sausage, roll it to the centre one way and roll the other to the centre the opposite way to give an S shape, and pop that onto the baking tray. Here we go. Now I'm just going to move them around so that they're fairly close, couple of centimetres. I want them to join together, that's better, that's a bit more even. I want them to join together when they're cooked, because I like to be able to tear the bread apart and see the cooked edge. Cover, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop it here into the grill unit of my oven. It can be anywhere warm because the yeast likes the warmth. It can be anywhere warm, but I've got the oven set at the moment. It's on gas mark 7. But the oven is underneath the grill unit. Now the grill is not on, the top oven is not on, but it is warm in there because the oven underneath is warm. So I'm just going to pop it in there. It is quite important that you don't put it flat on the base though. I am actually putting it onto a shelf in there or onto a stand, so it raises up from the bottom of the cooker, because otherwise the bread will cook underneath and you don't want that. You're literally leaving it there now to rise until it is doubled in size. Now let's have a look and see whether these have risen. Just carefully pull them out. I'm using oven gloves because they just might be a little bit warm, but doesn't seem to be too bad. There we go. They have actually doubled in size and they are joining together, which is exactly what I had wanted. So here we go. I'm going to put a glaze on now, just a little bit of milk. You can use some egg, that'll make it really shiny. If you don't want to glaze your bread rolls, you can sprinkle some flour over the top and that will give a soft white floury finish to them. So we just coat these very, very carefully, be very gentle, because you can actually damage the shape of the bread roll. Oops, spilt a little bit there. There we go. And then if you'd like to put some seeds on, you can sprinkle some seeds onto the top of the bread rolls. Now I've got 3 different kinds of seeds here. There's sesame seeds, and there's sunflower seeds, and there's poppy seeds. Not poppy seeds. You can use poppy seeds, but they're pumpkins. The big seeds are pumpkin seeds. These little ones are sesame. And then I have some sunflower seeds too here. Obviously you wouldn't use these if somebody was allergic to the seeds. There we are, pop those on. And then that's going to go into the oven in a minute. Oh, quick mark there. Oven gloves. Pop those into the hot preheated oven. There, and time for about 10 minutes. Right, after about 10 minutes, just going to have a quick look. They look good. There, you can see they have actually joined up together there. Switch the oven off. And very hot, put them onto a wire. There. And use a palette knife just to help get them off. And you take them off, loosen them up first of all. And we're going to use a cooling wire again, because the cooling wire will allow air to circulate underneath all round. That's done. Tap the bottom, it will sound hollow. And that's how you know when a bread or bread roll is done. And you see there where they're being torn apart. It gives quite a professional finish. There. Just pull them apart and pop them on the cooling wire. Last one. It's always the last one that sticks, isn't it? There. Pop that over for washing up. And this is where you can tear them apart and you get that nice, fluffy, soft edge. And that's basically the bread rolls finished. You can put them onto a plate for presentation. Like so.